I wanted to talk about another kind of aspect of pelvic floor, and that's sleep. A lot of us are struggling. Picture this, and maybe you live this almost every night. It's about 2 a.m., and you're slowly lifting out of a sleep cycle and almost coming up to consciousness. Is there any chance you could stay zen enough and sink back down into blissful slumber? But then it hits like a ton of bricks. The urge to pee, like now. In fact, there's some doubt that you'll make it all the way to the bathroom. So, waking up in the middle of the night with this urgency is another issue that we deal with in midlife, and it does torpedo our sleep quality. Wouldn't you like to build better sleep, not have to get up and pee all the time in the night? And how about those of us who plan our entire day around where the nearest bathroom is? I mean, urgency can hit at night or during the day. It's still urgency. And it's a type of incontinence and it's super frustrating and even embarrassing. Sometimes we just say, well, I'm old or it's my pelvic floor. But what if that's only part of the story? And I'm going to talk about a lot of what some of our other presenters have already kind of touched on, and that's nervous system. All that tension we've been talking about, all that holding and how we need to release, that's your nervous system trying to protect you. So, nervous system and sleep cycles are playing a much bigger role than we've been told. So, stick with me. I'll give you some solid strategies to tame that urgency. But first, let's dive in. Why is the nervous system a big concern these days? Well, because you have beeping and bonging notifications 24/7. We have lights on late at night. It's dark outside where I live, but I have all these lights on because I'm doing this presentation. It's confusing the heck out of my head. I'm rushing around, I'm multitasking. I basically have underlying stress all day long. This message in my brain, maybe you do too. I'm never going to get it all done, and it's certainly never going to be done good enough. Right? That's the way we live nowadays. We've lived our whole lives that way pretty much. And from a nervous system perspective, this creates a subtle but chronic state of alertness. In yoga therapy, we would call this a system that has trouble shifting out of doing mode. When the body stays in this heightened state, which it almost does chronically in the 21st century, we weren't wired for this. It affects our digestion, it affects our hormone regulation, which comes back to, the whole issues with menopause we've been talking about, and bladder function. So, do you notice as you age, I certainly do, that you just have certain higher levels of anxiety? I mean, it kind of comes out of nowhere, but it has some very far-reaching effects. We might not recognize it as anxiety per se, but for me, it's this general sense of I'm being behind, or sometimes I'm not fitting in, or I'm missing something important. And of course, exhaustion contributes to my general stress levels. And that's why having this conversation about better sleep and supporting our bladder health is just so essential. Because the bladder is not just mechanical, it's neurological. Sleep is just not rest. It's when your whole body recalibrates. So, all the releasing and all the healing that we've been talking about doing for our pelvic floor, a lot of that happens in sleep. And you know this, right? The days when you get solid sleep, which might be few and far between, but those are gold. You're not imagining it. Sleep is key. Now, what you might have thought was a lack of willpower or written it off as just getting old is really biology. I'm going to dive into two hormones here. Bear with me. One of the key players we want to understand when we're talking about urgency is aldosterone. It helps regulate your fluid balance, your sodium level, and indirectly how much urine your body produces overnight. It is produced in the adrenal glands. These little babies are just above the kidneys on either side. They are also responsible for pumping out your cortisol. Chronic stress equals cortisol, which exhausts these little babies, these little adrenal glands. So we're not getting the aldosterone that we used to. Now, when your sleep is deep and restorative, the body produces hormones in a balanced rhythm. Your urine production will slow and the bladder can rest. But when the sleep was fragmented, shallow, or shortened, the rhythm itself gets disrupted. This leads to more nighttime urination, increased urgency, and a bladder that just basically feels just more reactive, a very nervous bladder. And actually, I think that's a medical condition that they can give you pills for. Then there's this other hormone that I wanted to highlight called vasopressin. This helps reduce the flow of liquid from the kidneys to the bladder. And at night, we're supposed to slow this flow down so the bladder doesn't fill up as fast. Again, chronic stress interrupts accurate signaling. Have you ever noticed this? I know I have. Um, that in the morning, I don't pee as often, but as the day goes on, by the afternoon, I'm in the bathroom like every hour. Now, that is because of this change as the stress builds, as the exhaustion builds over the day, the change in vasopressin. And also at night, if you're mouth breathing, the system won't relax as much, so you don't have that vasopressin production. And your bladder will fill up faster than's ideal, and boom, we got to pee. So, what does this chronic stress actually do to disrupt these hormonal signals? When the nervous system perceives stress, whether it's physical or emotional stress is the same, the body shifts into a protective mode. And in that state, your muscles tend to grip or tighten. The breath will become shallow or will breathe through the mouth. And Kim was explaining how detrimental that is to your pelvic floor. Your reflexes in general become just more reactive. And for us women, this can show up as that urgency, leaking, or maybe when you do go pee, you can't let it all go. Because the pelvic floor is not just about strength, and we haven't said the word Kegels yet tonight, but I want to bring it into the conversation now, and I know Deborah's going to cover more.
Yeah.
Kegels are about strengthening that pelvic floor, and that's what we think is the gold standard. But can you see everything we've talked about so far tonight is about releasing, softening, coming back to a more natural rhythm, not brute grip strength. So it's coordination and timing, which are governed by the nervous system. So if the system is dysregulated, the signals to the bladder can become, well, a bit scrambled. But here's the good news. This system is trainable, and I want to share a way that you can start right now. We've already had some wonderful advice from Kim about breathing. We've talked to Clarissa about some movement and some lifestyle changes. I want to talk about breathing again. And, this is just such a simple thing to do. We can do it right now together. When urgency hits, say you're at your front door and your hands are filled with parcels and you're trying to figure out where your keys are and you gotta pee, right? Doesn't it come on like that and you're like in a desperate situation to get to the bathroom? Well, right then, you can try this breathing technique and tell me if it doesn't help. Okay, let's do it together. Sit up straight as Kim was teaching us. So we're in alignment. You can close your eyes if you like. Just take a second to pause and become still. So if you're standing at your front door, just be still. Take a long, slow inhale through the nose and then exhale through the mouth. Try it again. And one more time. So you're standing at your front door, you try that breathing technique, the whole system starts to shift from, oh God, where's my keys? I'm going to panic, I'm going to pee, to the parasympathetic nervous system kicking in, calming you down, bringing you into rest and regulate mode. And that helps to turn off the signal of urgency. Because remember, it's a neurological issue, not actually that your bladder is going to burst, but a neurological issue. You'll get regain control. And now, if you try that technique when you're waking up at the night, it might be you can get back to sleep, roll over and go back to sleep. Because this is not about holding your bladder. It's not about being tough on yourself. It's about softly re-regulating with techniques like breathing. So when we look at bladder issues through this lens, you can see it's not just weak muscles or aging or something to fix. It's a combination of the load on our nervous system, how that affects our sleep quality, which interferes with our hormonal rhythms, which feeds back into a maladapted nervous system. So we've got this loop of suffering. Your body is not failing you, it's responding intelligently to the conditions that it's been given. When we begin to support sleep and regulate the nervous system and work with the body, things can change and often more quickly than you expect. I want to leave you with one little quick story. Some time ago, I went on a yoga retreat with a colleague who's 15 years my senior. And I said to her, well, you'll want the bathroom or the bedroom closest to the bathroom, assuming she'd have to get up in the night more than me. And she looked at me quite coolly and she said, my dear, I just tell my bladder it's not time. And I thought, how can you do that? So I questioned her, learned more about this, and I will tell you, it does work. Now, if you get up once in the night to pee, that's pretty normal, not to worry too much. But if this urgency conversation rings a bell for you, girlfriend, we got to talk. Utilizing the tools you're learning here tonight can really impact your sleep and not just leaking. I'd also like to offer a supportive resource. These things that I've talked about tonight and other tools that I use to fall asleep and to get back to sleep, I've put them into a course called Sleep Solutions. And I'd like to offer you a discount of $10 off the package. So it would cost $19. And I will put the link to the Sleep Solutions course in the follow-up email, or you can just message me and I will get it to you. But let's really take your sleep seriously because it's important and it impacts your pelvic floor.